What's going on, guys? It's Zach here, bringing you guys another fantasy football video. This is me doing a 10-team PPR mock auction draft on the ESPN platform. This will be my first one that I've really given you guys in terms of an auction draft that was done in a 10-team league. Normally I do 12-team leagues for that, but I figured it'd be helpful to get you guys a 10-team league as well. Show you guys how I would sort of approach that differently and really give you what my best insight is into that. So, really do enjoy making these videos. It's really fun doing all these mock drafts. We're really getting into the thick of draft season. It's August 17th when I'm recording this right now, so we've got, I believe, 3 weeks to the day before the first NFL game, so super exciting. Football's right around the corner, and it's going to be a hell of a lot of fun. So, really excited to really get into draft season, really have a bunch of fun, and have a lot of fun doing all these drafts and stuff. So, yeah, with that, the draft's going to start here in about 5 seconds. In general, the differences between a 10-team and a 12-team league, I would put a slightly larger emphasis. My bad, I'll mute that. I'd put a slightly higher emphasis on drafting top-tier tight ends and top-tier quarterbacks. I think that, in general, the top-tier tight ends especially give you a lot more value in 10-team leagues because the general explanation for this is that every single team in a 10-team or a smaller league is going to be much better than they would be in a 12-team league. Their third wide receiver, their flex, is going to be a much better player in this format than they would be in a 12-team league. So putting yourself in a spot where you have a top-tier performer at the quarterback or the tight end position where there really are just a few true difference makers, it's going to allow you to really gain that positional advantage. And you're going to make up for it at the flex position because there are so many good flex plays in a 10-team league that you're not really going to be missing out too much on that, but you're really going to be giving yourself a huge positional advantage there. So guys like Kelsey and Mark Andrews, I do find to be really great values in 10-team leagues. I tend to lean towards drafting Mark Andrews. I think he's just a better value in drafts right now. He's a third-round draft pick versus an early first. If you take a look here, Mark Andrews is going to cost something like $20. Wherever he is, yeah, $20 right there. Travis Kelce's 57, so it's really tough to justify spending 3 times the amount on Travis Kelce than I would on Mark Andrews. So I do tend to find myself targeting Mark Andrews in drafts like this. So off the board, we've seen Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson each go for around $60. I think that's a perfectly fair price to pay for them. I just don't find myself doing it very often. I think that there are better values at wide receiver. They are a little bit cheaper. Guys like A.J. Brown are really good values. Stephon Diggs is a really good value. Chris Olave, you guys know, I think is a really good value, especially at $31. His draft price has gone up quite a bit on ESPN recently, which is a big bummer. Just even a little bit ago, he was like $22 in 10 PPR or 10 team leagues, $26 in 12 team leagues. So his price has shot up quite a bit. I think it's much more reasonable now. It's much more in line with what you'd see for his ADP. So it just sort of caught up there. So if you haven't drafted yet, we did miss out on that crazy good window, but I'm still super high on Chris Olave. I have no problems spending that $31 on him. I think it's going to be a really quality draft pick. We just saw Austin Eckler go for 56. I think that's a perfectly fine price tag as well. Again, just not something that I find myself doing very often, though. I think that there's really good value at the running back position later. I've also got a couple of guys ranked just super high that are much cheaper. For example, Nick Chubb going for $37 is just like a must-buy for me, especially in 10-team leagues where everyone's just cheaper in 10-team leagues. You should understand that you can build a better team in a 10-team league than in a 12-team league. That makes a lot of sense because there are less people competing for the players, so you should be able to get them at a lower price. Makes a lot of sense. There's also just less total money in the pool, so you should be understanding that you're going to get a better team in a 10-team league. It seems self-explanatory, but I'll shut up about that. Don't need to ramble on. We're seeing Christian McCaffrey go here. Again, not super interested in spending this much on a guy that I do think he's going to be a lead. I think he's going to be I got him ranked as my running back 1, but there are some injury concerns. The offense really could take a turn for the worse because who knows? Brock Purdy doesn't look healthy. Trey Lance has looked really bad in training camp. Sam Darnold has been Sam Darnold. So it's just difficult to get super excited, but obviously McCaffrey's going to be the running back 1 in my rankings, and I'd be shocked if he doesn't finish as a top 10 guy, but there are some concerns there, and obviously injuries is a concern with him as well. So here we go with Travis Kelce. I'd have been interested here if he went for some sort of bargain. I never really see him go for cheap, especially in 10-team leagues. People know what I'm talking about. People are smart when they're drafting. They want to make sure that they get that positional advantage at the tight end position. He's going to go for probably more than what his pre-draft value is. In pretty much any draft you do, he's just a guy that everyone wants to have on their team. They understand how just nice it is to have him on your roster. And it is really nice, but it's not $58 nice, especially when you can get Mark Andrews for $20. So this is an interesting strategy here. We just saw Team Fryer nominate Jahmyr Gibbs really early. Jahmyr Gibbs is supposed to go for $24. Normally, you will see that when you nominate a guy early like this, I tend to see him go for more than his pre-draft value. That tends to happen just because you nominated him in a spot where people have extra money. I'm more than happy paying $25 for him, and having seen Fryer nominate him, I know that Fryer is going to do that. If Fryer is dead set on getting Jahmyr Gibbs, I'm going to make him spend 28. It's just very clear that he wouldn't have nominated him if he wasn't dead set on having him, and I'm also personally okay getting him for 27. But there we go. We were able to get a guy to spend an extra $2. I will say, don't really put yourself in that sort of spot situation all that often. It's obviously you should only do it if you're in a situation where you're actually going to be happy if you draft the player. I've seen many people do this in many drafts where they'll try and bid up a guy and they'll end up getting stuck with the guy or stuck with the player, and you don't want to be drafting a guy you don't actually want just because you were trying to make a dude spend an extra dollar or two. So understand that if you're trying to bid a player up, you should only do it in a situation where you're going to be happy with the player that you get, be happy with your team if you get them, and don't put yourself in a spot where you're banking on somebody else to let you out, left you off the hook with that sort of draft pick. But like I said, because Fryer nominated this guy early, you don't nominate a guy early unless you want him. But also, if you're nominating him early, you do need to understand that you're probably overpaying for the guy. There's some give and take there. Guys that are later on in the draft, you'll see they'll get nominated early, but a lot of these later on guys actually go for way more than their pre-draft value because people in your leagues will have too much money left over. They won't have been as aggressive early on as they should have been. And if that's the case, then you're going to have people that have $30, $40 left for their last couple players, and then maybe a guy that you thought you'd be getting for $2, $3 ends up going for 15 because he's the best player left, and these guys have nobody else to really spend it on. So it's worth understanding that there's some sort of balance there. If you are dead set on getting a player, I don't have a problem with you nominating them early. Just understand that if you do that, you're going to need to pay a little bit more. You'll probably spend an extra couple dollars on the player, and that's okay, but just don't do that. Don't nominate them early expecting to get them at their actual price tag. Really interesting seeing Jonathan Taylor all the way down at $34. I still can't get myself to do it because I'm worried about the injury, I'm worried about the offense, I'm worried about the contract situation, and I think it's going to be really rough for him. I've got guys like Nick Chubb ranked way higher, and they're similar price tags, so I'm still passing on Jonathan Taylor where he's going right now. I think he'd be like a fine round 3 draft pick, but spending a second round draft pick on Jonathan Taylor, that sort of capital in an auction draft, just seems too pricey for me for a guy who really could tank your team, kind of like what he did last year. Cooper Cup for 53, perfectly fine. Not something I find myself doing very often just because I'm worried about the injury and worried about his age, worried about the whole Rams offense in general potentially imploding. So another example here, we just saw Team Brooks nominate Joe Burrow. They are clearly set on drafting Joe Burrow. They want to see if they can get him at a reasonable price tag. I would bet quite a bit that he goes for at least the pre-draft value, if not more. Very interesting to see Team Brooks having not bid. He just did. Now it's up to 19. I haven't been drafting Joe Burrow very often. I'm not going to bid him up here just because it's not something that I wouldn't be happy if I drafted Joe Burrow there, but I bet he would have bid up with me. Before it gets too late, I want to start nominating players that I actually want. I'm going to nominate Bijan or Nick Chubb ahead of some other running backs. I understand that I'm probably going to have to overpay a little bit, but Nick Chubb is now my highest ranked running back on the board. It will pretty drastically change my draft strategy if I'm unable to get him. So I want to see if I'm going to get him for a reasonable price tag. I'll go up to 40 on him. I think 40 is a perfectly reasonable price tag on Chubb. Chubb's just going to be a rock solid running back 1 for you guys this season, and oof, okay. I'm not going to go up over that. Not worth it, but see, that's why we do this early, because now I know, okay, there are still other running backs I like that I can still target, not put myself in a spot where I'm basically punting on the whole running back position. There are plenty of running backs later I like as well. I do really like Ramondre Stevenson. I like Bijan quite a bit, but I can't bring myself to spend $53 on him. It's tough. Pollard for 44 is totally fine as well. Another option too as well here would just be to go really wide receiver heavy. This is a PPR format. We can get Mark Andrews. We could get a top tier quarterback even. We could get 3 really good wide receivers and then just take our budget guys at running back. You guys know who those budget guys are if you've been watching any of my videos. Obviously, you guys know I love guys like James Conner, Miles Sanders, David Montgomery especially. One thing I do want to point out, J.K. Dobbins right now is $3 on ESPN. He's going in like the 10th round or something in ESPN drafts right now. I've got to believe that's going to go up over the course of the next couple weeks, but J.K. Dobbins for $3 is an absolute steal. you should absolutely, in pretty much every draft, whether you like J.K. Dobbins or not, be targeting J.K. Dobbins on ESPN because the value is just insane. I can't understand why he's that cheap, and I doubt he will be by the time we get to a week or two from now that he's activated off the pup. But just make note of that. If you're drafting soon, J.K. Dobbins is pretty much a must draft for you guys on ESPN right now. So Saquon's another guy. I think he's gonna have a really quality season, but it's just this top tier is just a little bit too pricey for me. I don't find myself really liking how my rosters turn out when I spend over 25% of my budget on any given player. I find that I can get a lot better value by building out a complete roster, basically like a full roster of like round 2 through 5 guys. Makes my team feel just really top down, really solid, and I just like how it builds out more that way. Obviously, if a value presents itself on one of these guys, I'm not going to shy away from it, but I don't really go into my drafts targeting these top tier guys. I find myself sort of waiting the first 15, 20 picks, and then really sort of just hammering out a lot of players for a couple picks, and then really got my starting lineup filled out really quickly here, and then it ends up going pretty quick that way too, actually. Derrick Henry going for 49. Again, obviously he's probably going to be a great draft pick. He's probably going to be another top 5 running back, have another great season, but I'm too scared to draft him. I get it, you could call me a coward, but I generally take the approach where I would rather be a year early in terms of being out on a player than being a year late. I don't want to be drafting a guy who's 29, could legitimately fall off a cliff any minute now, and could really put you in a really big bad spot if the Titans implode. There's a real chance that we could see Derrick Henry be a trade target for other teams during the course of the season. I wouldn't be shocked at all to see the Titans implode at some point. We already saw Treylon Burks get carted off the field in practice. Obviously, he's probably going to be okay, but they are an injury away to the receiver position from, again, just having a really horrible wide receiver room. That offense is not really built to perform well. Their offensive line is awful. Their defense fell apart last season. There's a lot to be concerned about in Tennessee, so spending that much money on Derrick Henry, although I understand why people are doing it, I just can't bring myself to. So Tony Pollard's a running back that I would consider buying. I'm interested. I'm not going to overpay for him, but I think he really does give you legitimate top, honestly, RB1 overall upside this season. The signings of Dalvin Cook in New York and Ezekiel Elliott in New England do make me feel a lot better about Tony Pollard as well. I really don't think the Cowboys are going to be adding another running back. I think they really like what they have in Deuce Vaughn. I like what they have in Deuce Vaughn. Deuce Vaughn looked great in week 1 of the preseason. I He's a really shifty player. I think he's going to offer a lot for them. I think Deuce Vaughn might even be the change of pace back for Tony Pollard, which is funny because a lot of people sort of think of Tony Pollard as the change of pace back in that offense. But Tony Pollard's going to be a workhorse for this team. He's probably going to see almost 300 touches this season, and he's super efficient with those touches. He's going to be a guy that could legitimately finish as the running back 1 this season, and getting him this late, getting him this cheap is just something that I do think is a really good value right now. I will say having Tony Pollard pretty much takes CeeDee Lamb off the board for me. I think CeeDee Lamb's going to be a really great draft pick this season. Probably be a fringe top 5 wide receiver again. I just don't find myself necessarily targeting him in most of my drafts just because I think the ceiling's a little bit limited. Brandon Cooks was brought in. He's going to be an integral part of the offense. Michael Gallup's healthier. He's going to catch a lot more passes this season. They might throw the ball even less this season. They might be a slower paced offense. So there's reasons to be pessimistic about CeeDee Lamb, but he's just such a good player. Dak's a good enough quarterback. It's going to be a good offense. So CeeDee Lamb's going to be a fine wide receiver 1, but I don't think he's got the true like wide receiver 1 overall upside that some of these other guys do. It's really interesting seeing these guys nominate guys way ahead of schedule. For example, George Kittle again being nominated this early. I haven't really seen them going for that much more than their pre-draft value. Clearly, Brooks wants George Kittle here. I won't touch George Kittle with a 10-foot pole right now. He's already injured. He's been injured several times over the last several years. He's just going to be a touchdown-dependent tight end, and I don't find myself really targeting him. But this is what I expect to see. Guy gets nominated early. Everybody's got plenty of money left. And now we're going to see him go for more than his pre-draft value. So, $8 isn't the end of the world at all, but it's just something to note. I'm going to nominate. I want to get A.J. Brown and I want to get Chris Olave. That's the ideal scenario here. I want to nominate A.J. Brown first because obviously, you guys know how much I love Chris Olave. He's a guy that I really do try to leave pretty much all of my drafts with. I think he's going to be a rock star this season. And if I don't get A.J. Brown, I'll know that I can more comfortably overspend to get Chris Olave. On top of that, I think that it would really help dictate what I'm going to do at the quarterback position. We've got those top three quarterbacks coming in soon, and I'd be more inclined to target one of them if I can't get A.J. Brown here. But there we go, A.J. Brown, $40. It's a bit pricey, but I don't really have a problem with it. We've still got $117 left. Um, as you guys all know, I like to spend $2 per bench spot, $1 on the kicker and defense, so we need to have $17 left, or $16 left for our kicker, defense, and our entire bench, which means I have $101 left to fill out my quarterback, RB2, wide receiver 2, tight end, and flex spots. So that is 5 starting lineup spots that I need to fill with $101. So I can spend just over $20 per player. With that noted, we are going to be looking at, you guys know, I'm intending to spend Chris Olave here. Let's just say I spend the 31. That gives me $70 for 4 spots. That's where we have to sort of start pinching pennies a little bit. I will be targeting Mark Andrews. That'll be a $20 purchase. But then there's a lot of guys that are really cheap that I do love getting. I can get guys like David. If David Montgomery's my running back too, that's totally fine for me. It doesn't feel bad at all. I'm going to get Justin Herbert at quarterback. That's super great. So I'm going to have plenty of money left. We could easily spend up on another running back there. I could go Ramondre, get that running back 2 set. So we'll take a look at that. But it's really insane how good of a team you can build in a 10-team draft, especially in auction. I don't think people play around with mixing and matching things enough in their auction drafts because you really can build whatever team you want in an auction draft. Every single player is available to you. Their price tag's right there for you, basically. Obviously, give or take a little bit, given how your league wants to play it. But the fact of the matter is, you can build pretty much whatever team you want. So I think it's really important that whatever you do in an auction draft, you should go around, look at the pre-draft values for your league, just put together a bunch of different roster combinations, see what works for you guys, see what teams look good to you, see what's going to make you happy after the draft, and that'll really help you just sort of understand what you want to do going into draft night as well. It's going to help you set aside several different plans. You'll have a bunch of different rosters built out. You can look at those during your draft and see, okay, I like this one. And then as the draft goes along, you can see how it's happening and see how that closely follows on the drafts you've built out and see what you actually want to build, because you don't want to go into your draft without a plan, and you want to have things set up so that you know what you're looking for by the end of the draft, so that you do end up with a team you're really happy about. We did just see Josh Jacobs go for $35. I'll talk about Josh Jacobs a little bit. Their general manager was recently reported to be saying that they will work it out regarding his contract situation with Josh Jacobs. I don't really find myself to be comforted by that at all. I don't necessarily think that Zamir White is a very good player. I didn't see anything from him last year to really think that he warrants getting excited about. So I wouldn't necessarily think that he's a must-add, must-draft player late, although he is someone you can draft in like the last round of your drafts if you want to, just because he will probably get a lot of volume if Josh Jacobs misses. However, I sort of think that they would add another guy. This seems like a team that, even though they probably are going to be really bad, they probably shouldn't be looking to compete this year. I think they are looking to compete this year. They brought in Jimmy Garoppolo. They could just be playing a rookie. They still have Devontae Adams. They signed Jacoby Myers. They've got enough weapons in the offense that I think they can be competitive. So I wouldn't be shocked to see them be a team that maybe brings in a Leonard Fournette, brings in a Kareem Hunt if Josh Jacobs holds out any longer. So I don't really think Zamir White's going to have a ton of value, but I also don't think Josh Jacobs is going to hold out. It just doesn't make sense for him to do it from a financial standpoint. From a NFL career standpoint, it doesn't really make sense either, because he's just going to be a year older next year if he holds out, and potentially without even having accrued this year on his contract. So it really doesn't make sense for him to come hold out. Maybe he'll hold out a week, watch them be bad on offense, and then come back and say, I told you so. But I think that's about it. You're going to get Josh Jacobs for most of the season in all likelihood. So I don't find myself targeting him, but I'm not afraid of drafting him, really, because we know he's healthy. We know what his role is, and he was good in it last year. So I'm not scared of drafting Josh Jacobs right now. So the scary part here now with me wanting Chris Olave is now we're pretty much at the end of a tier for the wide receiver position. After Chris Olave, if you look at it, there's a very significant tier drop going down to Debo, Keenan, Judy, and Amari Cooper. That is scary because, I think that there's a real scenario here where when you get to the end of these tiers, you do see players go for more expensive. You see the guys that are at the last spot in each tier, they do end up being more expensive just because everybody else who wants a top tier receiver like Chris Olave is going to realize, okay, this is my last shot to get them, and they're going to be willing to spend those couple extra dollars. So it's worth noting. You do want to keep in mind how the tiers are playing out. There wasn't really anything I could do about it. I do really want to target Chris Olave, and I'm willing to overpay just a little bit to get him here, but I am now prepared to overpay for him because I think I might have to. Because if anyone else is sitting here with money, for example, we've got Team Smythe sitting there with $165. That's scary. He could be in play here, and if that happens, then I could be in a spot where I'm going to have to spend a little extra here. But totally okay. Let's just hope we can get him in the low 30s. I'll go up to 35, but it'll feel bad. And I already know in the subscriber league, Chris Olave is going to go for $50. There have been a lot of jokes about it. We'll see who ends up getting Chris Olave. I do very much expect to get sniped and all sorts of stuff in that draft. So I'll be sure to live stream that draft as well. It's going to be on September 4th. That's the Monday of Labor Day. That's the best day that worked out for everybody. So I'll have a live stream scheduled for that. It'll be a lot of fun. We can get everybody involved and just have a lot of fun with it. You guys can watch the draft if you're a part of it. It'll be super exciting to enjoy. Have everyone in the live stream as well, just sort of chatting it up and having a lot of fun with it. So really excited for that draft, and sounds like we've sort of agreed the first place winner is going to be allowed to come on the podcast or on the YouTube channel and be interviewed for a couple minutes, get a little channel shout out as well. So it'll be fun, definitely something to play for, and really excited about it. So should be a really fun first year for that subscriber league. Seeing Josh Allen go for cheap, I'm not gonna let Smythe get away with getting him for cheap like that. I'm okay getting Josh Allen for $25. That is insane value. I mean, $25 for Josh Allen, that's insane. I basically now have like 4 second-round draft picks on my team, so that's a really nice start. I've still got $60 left, which is plenty of money. The concern here is I do need to fill out 3 more roster spots, running back 2, tight end, and flex, and I've got $44 to do it. So it's a little hairier now, but I think now that I've got Josh Allen, he's really going to hold down the fort for me. I do still want Mark Andrews if I can get him for $20. What that means is I'm going to have $24 left for my flex and my my running back 2. As you all know, I love my running back 2 to be David Montgomery. He's just a screamingly good value right now. If I can get David Montgomery and J.K. Dobbins, that's going to make me feel really good about my running back room behind Pollard. And it's just crazy how cheap you can build out that running back room right now. Getting Montgomery and Dobbins for a total of $7 is just highway robbery. You're getting 2 guys that you can start legitimately all season, guys that I think are going to have pretty quality seasons, and guys that literally cost you nothing. They should be absolutely, definitely targets for you guys in your auction drafts this season. And honestly, on ESPN, you should be drafting them anywhere. Even in snake drafts, they're definitely great targets to have right now. I am interested in Calvin Ridley. I think he's a really awesome high-end flex play to have, so I will be involved. I'll go to 15. I'm not going to overpay for him, so that's fine. I'll let him slide. But if you can get Keenan or Calvin Ridley to be your wide receiver 3, I think it really sets you up to have a ton of upside on a week-to-week basis. You could easily be a team that's just going to dominate. And I mean, if Calvin Ridley hits, he's going to hit. He's going to be a top 10 guy, and I kind of am more and more coming around to thinking he's going to do that. I still have him ranked outside my top 15, but I do need to move him up. I think he's going to be a really good player this season. I think he's back. He's looked really good. All the reports out of camp are that he looks great, and this Jaguars offense is going to take a step forward. So Ridley's got a ton of upside, and I really do like where he's going in drafts now. I think he's slotted into a really good spot, especially at $15. It's a really good value right now. Team Rain and nominating Terry McLaurin is interesting. I don't know why they think they're going to get him with their $15 and their max bid of what, 5? Interesting try, I guess. I'm not going to spend up on McLaurin here, though. I think I can do better than that at my wide receiver 3 here, um, potentially at least. And I also do just want to make sure that I'm saving that money for Mark Andrews because I really do think he offers just a huge positional advantage for you guys this year. Mark Andrews, he's going to be awesome. I think he's one of my favorite draft picks to make. And again, on ESPN, a lot of these ADPs and all these auction values are coming together. They're starting to make more sense. But like Chris Olave, late second, early third round pick. He's $31 here. Mark Andrews, late second, early third round draft pick, and he costs 20. So Mark Andrews still is one of the best values on ESPN in auction drafts. He's been a very significant target for me in every auction draft I've done on ESPN. He's somebody that I really do want to make sure that I'm prioritizing in my drafts this season. And that's why I don't draft so much Kelsey, just because it's not necessarily a knock on Kelsey by any means. It's just I don't think he's going to outperform Mark Andrews by that much. And if that's the case, then you're getting 85, 90% of the production for a third of the price. So that's why I find myself passing on Kelsey more often than not. Alexander Madison's really interesting. I do think he's going to get a lot of volume in this offense. I think it's going to be a good offense as well. So he could certainly be a really good player this season, but they've been visiting with several veteran running backs lately. They had Kareem Hunt in for a visit. They had Mike Davis in for a visit. And I thought Tyson Chandler looked really good in week one of the preseason, too. So it's interesting to see that they're still looking around. I would have sort of thought that Tyson Chandler's performance would sort of soothe them, but it doesn't seem that it did. I'm going to nominate Mark Andrews here. I want to know if I'm going to get him. Getting that piece of information early is going to let me know if I have that extra money for my running back 2 in my flex spots. Because if I don't get Andrews here, I'm definitely going for Goddard for that $6 price tag. Both are really great values, but Mark Andrews is going to be a true difference maker. And like I said, in a 10-team league, I do want to prioritize having that top-tier tight end, that top-tier quarterback, and I can have both of those if I get Andrews and Josh Allen here. So I'm not going to go higher than 22. It is a bit of an overpay. It's going to put me in a spot where my running back 2 is not going to be great, but I'm going to do it. I'll still have $20 left for my running back 2 in my flex. My running back 2 is going to be David Montgomery or J.K. Dobbins, so my flex would be like a $10 player. Make sure I'm in a spot where I can still overpay, and that's just too pretty. Having that tight, now I'm basically at a spot where I've got 5 second-round draft picks. That's just a really, really rock-solid starting lineup. I don't think anybody can beat that. And it's almost like who cares with my bench. If I end up having to get a couple $1 guys, especially in a 10-team league, I'm more willing to do that because there will be good players on waivers throughout the course of the season. Especially in 10-team leagues, you can definitely just prioritize your starting lineup. It's going to be a situation where there's going to be so much roster turnover for all of you guys during the course of the season. That waiver wire is going to be super active in 10-team leagues, especially in leagues with small rosters like this, teams that only have 16 total roster spots. So it just makes so much sense to be targeting guys that are going to make real differences for you. And then if you have a bad bench, who cares? Because you'll be able to make it better throughout the course of the season. Dameon Pierce is another interesting one. I've sort of come around on him a little bit. I still have him ranked significantly below ADP, but I do think he's going to be better than I was initially giving him credit for. It sounds like he's pretty clearly won the starting job ahead of Devin Singletary. I do think Devin Singletary is going to get work. I think he'll probably get more work than what we saw the other Houston running backs get last season, and I do still think Devin Singletary is going to steal pass catching work, but Dameon Pierce sounds like he's taken a step forward as a pass catcher. They've talked about how much he just looks really great in camp this season. He was the running back that didn't play in their preseason game when they rested their starters. Devin Singletary did play. Just a lot of reasons to like that Dameon Pierce. I think the offense is still going to suck. Pass catching is going to be a question mark. So I don't really think he's worth his pre-draft value right now or his auction or his ADP, but I am higher on him, and I do think he's got enough talent that I don't necessarily hate the draft pick if you just want to take a shot on a guy that we think is talented. Keenan Allen's just a really safe draft pick for $22. I think he's going to be a guy that, as long as he's healthy, which obviously that's a pretty big if, he's going to be a guy that's just going to perform at a really high level. He's going to catch a lot of passes. He sounds like he's being used downfield a little bit more than he was last year, too, so we could see him be more efficient on top of that. He's just a really interesting guy to look at. I tend to find myself liking Mike Williams more. I think he's just a better value right now. He costs less than half as much. He goes a couple rounds later by ADP, and I think that Mike Williams offers just as much week-to-week upside, if not more weekly upside, and I think both of them are pretty big injury risks, so I'd just rather not take as much of an investment out on a guy that I do expect both of them to probably miss 3 or 4 games, if not more this season, and that's another reason why I'm actually really high on Quentin Johnston, because I think you can play Johnston if you need to, but there will be plenty of weeks this season where one of Keenan Allen or Mike Williams misses. And if that's the case, Johnson's going to be a locked-in starter for you that week, and that's just really nice to have for how cheap he's going. It's been a bummer to see Jerry Jeudy's pre-draft value rise recently. A little bit ago, he was going much closer to that $10, $15 range, going around the likes of Marquise Brown, Tyler Lockett, guys like that, and now he's shot up to being like a $21, $22 guy. Seems like in general, ESPN said he fits more in with the Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen tier. I tend to agree with that. I think that is a perfectly fine draft spot for him to be going in, but it's just a little bit scary knowing that he is now an expensive asset, and we are sort of projecting a breakout to happen for him, which you never know. The Broncos could be just garbage again this season. They could take that step forward. Sean Payton could fix the offense, and Jeudy could be a hell of a draft pick. But it's just a little bit scary where Jeudy's going now. I do find myself not targeting him the way that I was. I'm not afraid of drafting Jeudy, but before that ADP change, before that draft price change, I was much more going into my draft with him as a target. Now he's just less of a necessity for me. So sort of planning for our flex here, guys that I'm really going to be looking to grab are probably going to be Mike Williams or Marquise Brown. I really want a guy that's going to have a lot of weekly upside. That tends to be the mold that I look for in my flex, a guy that can win me a week from the flex spot. I think both those guys can do that. I would prefer to get Mike Williams, definitely. I think he's just a guy that will have several week winning performances this season, and with having Olave and A.J. Brown as my wide receiver 1 and 2, I've got enough firepower to sustain those really bad weeks that Mike Williams is going to indefinitely have this season. Um, so I really like the value of Mike Williams. He tends to be a guy that I really do target to have as my flex this year. Michael Thomas is an interesting one. He could catch a lot of passes this season in PPR formats. I think he could be usable from a flex standpoint, but I just don't see him being super valuable this season. He's not a guy that I'm super excited about. Like you guys know, I'm super high on Chris Olave. I think Olave is going to be Olave is going to be going to be a Pro Bowler this season. He could legitimately be an All Pro caliber wide receiver. I think he's just going to have a monster season, and it's really got me sort of looking the other way away from Michael Thomas. So now that we're here, I'm going to nominate David Montgomery. I know it's early to be doing that with all the running backs still on the board, but I really want to get him. I'm happy to spend even up to 6, 7. I'd consider even going up to 10 at this point because he's going to make such a big difference for our roster. But it's just crazy how cheap David Montgomery is. I think that for whatever reason, so many people are just not in on him. He's a really talented running back in a really good offense, taking over a really good role. He's going to be a top 20 running back this season. If he's your running back 2, that is more than okay. He's going to have a great year, and he's extremely cheap. So it just makes it so that I really do punt on that running back 2 spot very often. I think that you can just be really comfortable, really happy going into the season with him. And I think it's just the right thing to do, taking David Montgomery pretty much everywhere. And you're wasting some of that value if you don't draft him with the intention of starting him. So you can really improve your roster everywhere else if you just understand that, all right, we're going to get David Montgomery, we're going to get J.K. Dobbins as our running back 2 and 3, and we're going to have a good enough running back room to compete because we're going to have the best running back, the best wide receiver room, the best tight end room, the best quarterback room, and we're just going to be a really dominant roster outside of the running back spot, and we'll piece together enough that it's going to be super solid. So now we're looking at this for our flex. We've got $31. We need to spend 16 between our bench and our kicker and defense, so we can spend up to $15 on our flex. That's very nice. I still think the best guy that I would the highest ranked player I would have remaining is going to be Mike Williams here. I do have Miles Sanders ranked very high as well, but I don't really want to be playing Miles Sanders in the flex. I'd much rather play a guy with more volatility, a guy like Mike Williams. And there are other running backs I can get later that I like the values of more, guys like J.K. Dobbins, Antonio Gibson. So we'll wait on running back here. We'll just make sure we try and get Mike Williams. We'll have a couple extra dollars for a bench, it's always nice to have. I don't want to ever prioritize that, but having that's nice. It's going to really allow us to fill out a really top tier bench, and spending $3 on a couple guys, $2 on a couple guys is going to make it a lot deeper of a roster. I just can't find myself really investing too much in DeAndre Hopkins. I think that In general, it's going to be a very low passing volume offense. DeAndre Hopkins isn't the explosive downfield threat that he once was either, so I don't think the weekly upside is really there for him. He could PPR his way to being a useful asset, but he's not going to be the reason you're winning any weeks. He's going to be a guy that you can play and just pray he catches 5 catches for 60 yards and a touchdown. Those weeks will be good. Weeks where he doesn't score a touchdown won't be. I don't imagine this is going to be a high-powered Titans offense. I don't think it's going to be a very high passing volume offense either, so I just don't find myself really touching Hopkins at all this season. And I don't even really think Hopkins has taken a step back. I think Hopkins is still a really talented wide receiver. He's obviously not the all-pro that he once was, but he's still a wide receiver one in the NFL. I think he's good enough to be that. I just don't think that the offense is going to be good enough to really allow him to perform at a high level. I want to take a look at Team Smythe here because Team Smythe really did wait forever for a lot of his guys, and he's really just hammered out these $20 assets. So guys like Lamar, Jacobs, Najee, Keenan, Amari Cooper, Hawkinson, Rashad White. That's not bad. The problem is he's got too much money left. Like my starting lineup is much better than his, and his bench isn't going to be all that much better than mine because we're running out of good players here. So I definitely prefer my approach, but he did salvage things. He didn't wait too long, so he didn't completely screw himself. Like I said, I do really like Miles Sanders this season. I think he can legitimately be a top 12 guy. I'll spend $12 on him. I'm not going to go to the 15, but $12 was going to be enticing enough to do it. But yeah, I think Miles Sanders is going to catch a lot of passes this season. He is dealing with an injury that's going to keep him out the rest of the preseason probably, so that's a little bit concerning given that he's in a new offense and he's going to be missing some pretty valuable time. But he's a veteran. He's going to be okay. He's by far the most talented running back in that backfield, and he's going to get a ton of work. He's going to catch a lot of passes, and he's going to be a really high-end fantasy producer for you this season. James Conner is another guy that I really do like. I think he can be a top 15 running back as well. Just super, super talented, actually, and he's going to get a lot of work. He's going to probably get 300, 350 touches even. And I mean, this Cardinals offense is going to run through him. I think the Cardinals offense could be a lot better than what we're projecting it to be as well once Kyler Murray comes back. So Connor's got legitimate, I'd even say top 10 upside, and you don't have to pay for that. So I do like James Conner quite a bit right now where he's going. Now that it's our turn, we'll nominate Mike Williams. We want him as our flex. That way we can really have our starting lineup filled out, and then we're going to start trying to hammer out, just getting some depth built out. Hopefully we can get him for a bargain. Probably not. Smythe seems like they want to be a pain in the ass, but we'll see. Smythe has the money. Honestly, if Smythe likes Mike Williams, he should be very invested in outbidding me here. He's being a little silly not taking him because he's got the money to grab anyone he wants at this point, but whatever he wants to do, that's fine by me. We got Mike Williams. Now we've got just honestly an elite starting lineup. Josh Allen at quarterback, Tony Pollard, David Montgomery at running back, A.J. Brown, Chris Olave, and Mike Williams at receiver, and Mark Andrews at tight end. Whew! We're going to win a league with that roster. That's really solid, and we still have $21 for our bench. We're going to be allowed to spend almost $3 per bench player. We're going to have a really high-quality bench. We've got a rock star of a starting lineup. This would be a monster team, and I'd be super stoked about leaving my draft with it. Justin Fields is an interesting case for me. I can't find myself getting excited. I don't really see a world where he actively exceeds his ADP. I know he's a really good player. I know that he's gonna run for over 1,000 yards, but I just don't think he's gonna excel as a passer. I don't see him taking that step forward, and it's gonna be really tough for him to perform at a high level in fantasy if he's not gonna throw for even 3,000 yards, not gonna throw for 20 touchdowns. It's just gonna be a little tough. But obviously, on top of that, all those negatives aside, he could run for 1,500 yards and just break fantasy and be a guy that's going to be a league winner and a guy that I am screwed because I faded all off season. My bad. Deontay Johnson's another interesting prospect here. I do like Deontay Johnson this season. I think he's going to be a really safe draft pick. He's going to be a guy. He's probably going to finish right around his ADP, probably a little bit higher. He's going to catch a lot of passes this season. I think we could see the Steelers throw, honestly, even more than they did last season. Um, I think they do sort of like the progression they've seen from Kenny Pickett. I liked what I saw out of Kenny Pickett in the first week of preseason. I think they're going to be a better team than what we're sort of giving them credit for. Here we go. Team Fryer seems to understand what the value is here. I'll go to 6. If he wants them for 7, it's his. But this is what I'm talking about with J.K. Dobbins and all the guys that you will see. For example, Smythe has a ton of money left at the end of the draft. You're not going to get those top tier guys for super cheap. That's totally fine. There's other running backs I do like getting here. Javonte Williams for 4 is a perfectly good value. I love Antonio Gibson. I also like Samaje Perine. Plenty of other guys you guys know as well. You guys know that I love getting these backups, Tank Bigsby, Tyler Algier. Guys like that have legitimate league-winning upside should things go right for them. Looking at the wide receiver position, there's some guys we're going to want to target here. Christian Kirk would be an option. He's a little bit out of our price range. Obviously, I like all 3 of these. Gabe Davis, Zay Flowers, Quentin Johnston. Especially Gabe Davis, too. I think he's a really nice flex option, especially in leagues where you target or have Josh Allen. Getting that stack late for pretty cheap is just something that I really like doing. If you put Gabe Davis in the same roster as Josh Allen, there will be a couple of weeks where just those two alone, and you're pretty much unbeatable because Josh Allen's going to throw for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns, and Gabe Davis will have 102 in those. There are going to be a lot of games where Gabe Davis is going to have 2 catches for 40 yards, and it's going to be gross, but that kind of makes him the perfect flex guy. He's going to be the kind of guy that's going to win you a week every now and then, and just a guy that you do want to have on your roster. Brees Hall is really interesting. $9 does seem like a fair price tag, but more and more, I just really do think that Dalvin Cook will be the 1A to start the season. Brees Hall is just not ready yet to be taking on a full workload. I don't see them really considering ever giving him that full workload early on in the season, just because they want to protect him. They do view him being the future of their running back position. So they're going to do what they can to make sure that he's getting used sparingly. I think even if something happened to Dalvin Cook, you would still see Michael Carter get utilized quite a bit. So I don't think the upside is really there early on in the season, but there are going to be games towards the end of the season where he's going to put up some monster performances. He's a really good player. I think he's going to have a really solid season. I think he's definitely going to be a guy that in the second half of the season could be a guy that's going to perform for you, but you're definitely you're not drafting Brees Hall with the intention of starting him week 1, probably not with the intention of starting him weeks 2 or 3 either. So just keep that in mind. Just don't want to put yourself in a spot where you're banking on him. But if he's your running back 3, I think he's a good draft pick. Jordan Addison, I'm overpaying for a little bit here, but I've got the money to spend a little bit, and I do think he's the best wide receiver on the board left that I could realistically afford. Um, so I wanted to target getting him. Now I want to go to the running back spot. I do want to get another running back. Antonio Gibson seems to be a really great value for me this season. I think he's going to be a guy that's going to finish inside the top 30. He's going to catch a lot of passes. Eric Bieniemy is going to be really creative with utilizing him. He's just a good player too, so I'm getting him for $3. More than okay doing that. I'm still going to have plenty of money left. Still have those $2 for the quarterback or for the kicker and defense. Then I'll have $12 for my remaining 5 bench spots. So plenty of money to spend that $3 here and really building out a quality starting or bench spot here. Because now we've got a bench running back and a bench wide receiver that I'm comfortable starting. That's really nice to have. It just gives you a little bit of peace of mind, especially giving the running back spot where I did wait. That is the weak spot of this roster, given David Montgomery's my running back too. There is the possibility that I'm wrong about him. I do think he's going to be a top 15, top 20 guy, so I think it's totally fine. I think he's a solid running back too, but objectively speaking, it is the weak spot on the roster here. And here's Justin Herbert, probably the best value at quarterback in the entire draft. $7 for Justin Herbert's insane. I've got him ranked as my quarterback 4. I think that he's going to finish inside the top 5. The quarterback position this season, he's got a legitimate shot to be the quarterback 1. He's got a ton of weapons, a great offensive coordinator. Getting him for $7 is just a hell of a bargain right now. DJ Moore is another guy that I've been fading quite a bit. I just don't see him performing at a high level in terms of volume. This is going to be a team that's going to throw the ball actually a lot less than what the Panthers did last season. So his overall target volume is going to be way down this season. He'd have to be far more efficient than he was. And Justin Fields has done nothing in his career to show me that he's a more efficient pass catcher or thrower of the football than anybody DJ Moore's ever played with. Sure, we could convince ourselves that, okay, this is the time that DJ Moore elevates a quarterback and makes them a good player. I don't see that happening. It's going to be a bad offense. It's going to be a run heavy offense, and DJ Moore has more target competition than he's ever had. Darnell Mooney's a pretty good player. Chase Claypool's reportedly having a really good camp. Cole Kmet is honestly a talented tight end. They just gave him a 4-year, $50 million deal. Uh, This is not going to be a team that's going to throw the ball more than 25 times a game, and DJ Moore, maybe he gets a 30% target share, which would be insane. That puts you at 7.5 targets a game. That's not enough for him to perform at a high level for where he's being drafted. So I don't find myself drafting DJ Moore very much. He's just not worth it at the ADP. He'll have some spike weeks, some weeks where he does win you the week, but those will be weeks where he houses a long touchdown like he did in week 1 of the preseason. It's not going to be something consistent that you can really rely on. Nice thing about having Josh Allen and Mark Andrews already, or any high-end quarterback and high-end tight end, is that you don't need to look at drafting a second one of either one. It makes things pretty easy for you when you get towards this part of the draft, just sort of knowing that you can pretty much ignore those positions and understand that you're going to have really a lot of success elsewhere without it. Cam Akers is another interesting one. We know he's probably going to get a ton of volume for the Rams. He really did flash towards the second half of last season as well. We've seen him in the past perform at a really high level. I think he might be a good player, but I'm having a hard time fully coming around on him because I think the Rams could implode. I think that Cam Akers is probably a mediocre running back. I don't think he's a superstar by any means, and we know the Rams' offensive line is bad. We don't know what that offense in general is going to look like, but for the price tag of $6, I think he's worth it. He's another guy that you could draft as your running back too and be comfortable with, but I wouldn't. He's not the kind of guy that I'd want to draft and depend on if I had to. I'd want him to be my third running back, a guy that I'm flexing in if I want to, or a guy that I'm only holding onto my bench and want to play if things go really well for him early on. Here's Dallas Goddard, another guy that I think is just going to be a really great value in drafts this season. I've got him ranked like tight end 3. I think he's being drafted as the tight end 7 right now, which is just way too low for a guy that's been the most efficient tight end in the NFL in terms of yards per target. He's going to probably get more targets this season than they did last year. The Eagles lost really nobody in terms of target competition, but they did lose Miles Sanders. They don't really have anybody that I expected them to be able to comfortably hand the ball off to a ton this season. So I think that you're going to see a situation where they might pass the ball more than they did have in the past. And if that's the case, you're going to see a few more targets come to Dallas Goddard. Dallas Goddard's going to be more involved near the goal line as well. It sounds like they've been utilizing him in the red zone quite a bit in training camp. And if that's the case, you're going to have a really just rock solid tight end there. Like I said, I got Mark Andrews here, so I'm not going to look at Dallas Goddard. But if I do miss on Mark Andrews, and obviously if I didn't take Travis Kelce, Dallas Goddard is 100% my tight end target later on. Christian Kirk's just a really nice guy to have on your roster. He's a guy that you can throw into your flex whenever you want. He's going to be a guy that's going to be super consistent, catch a lot of passes this season. I know he was only operating in the slot this last week, his first week of preseason, wasn't coming on the field for 2 wide receiver sets. That could be the case, but they're going to run mostly 3 wide receiver sets anyway. Doesn't really concern me. If they're running a 3 wide receiver set, they're going to pass the ball. He's a really good player. Trevor Lawrence likes him quite a bit. It's going to be a really solid season again for Christian Kirk, and he's $5 again. He's free, so totally worth targeting late in drafts. So now we've got 4 more spots that we need to fill with $7. So we've got $2 for each, except $1 for one of them. So we'll have to go dumpster diving at least once here, which is totally fine. Looking at other guys here. It'd be nice if we could get JSN for 2, but we probably can't. AJ Dillon for 2 is totally fine, but I don't really want to roster AJ Dillon and Antonio Gibson. That just sounds like a headache. Not something I really want to be staring down every single week. Although Brian Robinson might be the best running back available that we can still get, so I'm not exactly opposed to doing that. I'd probably prefer Samaj P. Ryan just to sort of diversify the roster a little bit, but not something that I'm dead set on. Tyler Lockett's going to be a really good value again this season. He's probably going to finish as the top 24 wide receiver. He's a really good player, and he's being drafted as like the wide receiver 31 right now, despite finishing in the top 15 4 years in a row. He's outscored DK Metcalf 2 years in a row. Geno Smith clearly likes him. He's an elite wide receiver. I obviously understand that JSN's going to come on the field and steal targets, but he's going to steal targets from both DK and Lockett. This team might just pass more to overcome that, and where Lockett's being drafted, he's going to be a guy that you can start pretty much any week and be comfortable with, and just understand that he's a good player. He's a guy that can be a spike performer as well. We've seen him put up some truly monster weeks, and he's just going to be a really nice guy to have on your roster. I view him very similarly to Christian Kirk, where a new target's been introduced into the offense. People are sort of just expecting him to sort of come back down to earth after a really good last season, but people are just ignoring the fact that they're a good wide receiver with good quarterback play. So I do love the value of Tyler Lockett right now. Another thing I would keep in mind for you guys as well is when you get towards this point in the draft, it's you don't have to nominate players for $1. You can nominate them for a set value. So in a situation like this, I will probably be looking to nominate, like for example, Gabe Davis for $2 because I don't want the computer to bid two and then force me to spend three. I want to put myself in a spot where I've got a chance of getting him for $2 and saving myself that extra dollar because it could go a long way. It could be the difference between a player I really want and just a player that I'm okay with. Brandon Ayuk's another guy that I'm really excited about this season. Him, Christian Kirk, Tyler Lockett, all sort of in that same tier for me of like low end wide receiver twos that are really going for quite cheap right now. Guys that I'm definitely targeting pretty often in drafts. But I'm too poor, so I can't do it right now. Pacheco's interesting. I think he'll probably operate as the lead running back for the Kansas City Chiefs this season, but I do think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be involved for them. I think Jerick McKinnon's going to be the pass catcher, and they're just going to be a team that's going to spread the ball around quite a bit. They don't have any incentive to just give him a workhorse role. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is still there. He's been good for them. He's not been great, but he's obviously been a bust in terms of being a first-round draft pick. But Clyde's not a bad NFL running back. He has the trust of the staff as well. It's going to be a situation where you probably just have a really ugly three-headed backfield. Generic Prince as well has looked good in training camp, so you could see four running backs see meaningful touches in that offense. I think it's going to be a headache. For $2, like what Silverman got there, totally fine. Might as well do it, but he's not somebody that I do find myself targeting very often. Pat Fryermuth is another guy that I think is going to be just a really safe draft pick this season. He almost had 100 targets last season. Only scored two touchdowns and still finishes the tight end 12. We saw him score 7 touchdowns just 2 seasons ago with Big Ben at quarterback. He's shown the capacity to be a real touchdown threat. Kenny Pickett just couldn't throw touchdowns last season. If that changes this season, we could see a situation where Pat Fryermuth maybe gets 5, 6 touchdowns and could legitimately find himself in a spot where he's scoring quite a bit more fantasy points this season than he did last. Do want to try and get Samaj P. Ryan for $1. It'd be really great if that's possible. I would imagine that some sort of CPU will prevent that, but if I can, it would really help me feel a little bit better about the starting roster here. Doesn't look like that's going to be allowed. That's a bit of a bummer, but that's totally okay. I don't really want to put myself in a spot where I'm going to spend three on him because there are other guys I'd rather spend three on if I have to. Evan Ingram's another decent tight end option. I mean, he's going to be a guy that's probably going to finish around the top 10. He's just outside the top 7. I think it's a clear top 7, then a tier break to him, along with guys like Fryermuth. And I just don't see a world really where he performs at a top 5 level. That offense just has way too many targets. He's probably operating as the fourth target in that offense behind obviously Ridley and Kirk, and then probably Zay Jones as well, who's reportedly having a really good training camp. We saw Zay Jones be really good last season for the Jaguars as well. Obviously, they like Evan Ingram. They gave him a big contract. He's a good player, but it's just going to be too much of a target competition for me to be super excited about Evan Ingram. He's probably going to be inconsistent. He'll have some spike weeks, and that's nice to have at tight end position, but I also generally want somebody that I can count on week in and week out to get a reliable target share, and I just don't think that Evan Ingram really offers that. We're seeing a kicker now finally. I guess we saw a kicker like McPherson went way early. Um, Hopefully things speed up a little bit here. We just need to get four more players. This is the, I guess you could call it the supposed downside of auction drafts is that they are far more time consuming. It ends up being way more time consuming to do all these mocks as well, which is totally okay. I totally understand, um, though, why people generally will sort of frown at the possibility of having a much longer draft. This is an auction or mock draft in a 10-team league, and obviously there's computers, so it's going relatively quick. But there are situations where you could have an auction draft on draft night go 2, 3 hours long, and I can understand why that's a downside for some people. I generally feel like draft night's something that only happens once a year. It's one of the best parts about fantasy. It's one of the most fun events you can have throughout the whole course of the season. So I personally have no problem with it being a longer event. I think it just adds to it. I think, if you're having a draft night, have a draft party, make it a thing, get everyone together, get some beer and pizza, just have a good time. You're just hanging out with 11 of your friends, and you happen to be drafting for 3, 4 hours during the course of that, and it makes it a lot of fun. So, highly recommend just turning things like that into like a draft party. It makes the length of the draft seem like a much less of a large deal, and definitely just makes it seem far more enjoyable for everybody involved. So we're getting there. We just got to get through these next couple guys so that everyone gets cheap enough that I can actually snag these guys for $2, and then we'll be out of here pretty quick. So just got to get four more guys here, hoping we can fill it out pretty quickly. But we'll see. Things do move pretty slow in auction drafts sometimes. Like I said earlier, we did see Traylon Burks get carted off the field in practice a couple days ago. Maybe it was yesterday. He It sounds like it was a sprained LCL, so it should be a couple week injury. I do expect him to be back for week one. So no true concern. He did it making a really great catch on a deep play as well. So it sounds like he was having a really good camp. I think the breakout for him could still happen this season, although it's probably going to take an injury to DeAndre Hopkins so that he can actually overtake that wide receiver one role in the offense. I don't really see a world where the Titans support two competent wide receivers, and Trigger Conquo is going to get meaningful targets as well in that offense. So it could be pretty gross there, but I do like the talent of Traylon Burks quite a bit. So if you want to take a bet on him at this point in the draft, I have no problem doing it. David Njoku is another guy that I could see taking a big step forward this season. Deshaun Watson's got a tendency to really involve his tight ends over the course of his career. David Njoku is probably the most talented tight end that he's played with. If Deshaun Watson comes back to form, he's going to be a meaningful part of a really good offense. I think you could make an argument that Njoku's got a shot to be the number two target in that offense behind Amari Cooper. I think a lot of people might say that it's Elijah Moore, Donovan Peoples-Jones, but it's just worth noting that there could be a situation where you have the number two target on a good offense if you get Njoku. I'm going to snag Tank Bigsby here. I think he's going to be a really solid running back option. He already has shown that he's going to be involved for the Jaguars offense. They brought him in with the starters for a short yardage role. That says to me that he's probably locked in to be the goal line running back in this offense as well. It's possible that he could steal pass catching work as well, though probably in all likelihood ETN's going to hold on to that. But Bigsby's going to get probably 10 touches a week, and if something happens to ETN, Bigsby's going to be a guy that would absolutely just have a monster role in that offense and be a guy that I definitely want on my fantasy team. Daniel Jones is interesting as well. I think he's a fine quarterback streamer. I have no intention of really drafting him. I think he's going to be a guy that you can play sparingly, but not a guy that I would want to leave my draft with as my quarterback one. So not something that I'm really targeting very often. So yeah, we're at the point in the draft now. We're just sort of getting defenses out, sort of plugging along. But we just gotta get three more players here. Once I've got those three, I won't make you guys sit through and wait for me to get a defense and kicker. So getting there pretty quick. We're almost down to the point where we're probably just gonna draft these three guys and we'll call it good. So um, been a lot of fun. As always, if you guys do have any questions for me after all these mock drafts, I'd be more than happy to answer them for you guys in the comments. Feel free to let me know. You guys can reach out to me on Twitter as well. I think my email is even on my website as well. You guys can reach out to me there. I'll respond to you pretty much wherever. I love interacting with you guys. It's been a lot of fun really seeing the community grow. We're like over 650 subscribers now, which is crazy. I think it was like 250 at the start of the off season. So it's been crazy seeing the growth. It's been a lot of fun seeing all that. I really do appreciate all the support you guys have been giving. Um, Gonna continue putting out videos pretty much every single day. Gonna be a video a day throughout the whole course of the rest of the off season, potentially even two if we had time. Just want to be able to get you guys as much content as possible. Really help sure that I can do as much as I can to help you guys win your leagues this season. And it's a lot of fun doing it all as well. I think it's really helping me prepare for my leagues as well. So I love doing this stuff. It's been super fun. I really appreciate all the support. Again, just can't express enough how cool it is that you guys actually care what I have to say. It's super cool, and I really do appreciate it. Um, Jahan Dotson's a guy that I really do think could take a step forward this season. I do believe in the talent. I think he's a legitimately elite wide receiver in the NFL. There's a chance even for him to overtake Terry McLaurin in that offense. The problem is that I just don't really think that offense can support two high-end wide receivers. I think Dotson's a fine draft pick just based off of upside alone. I've recently adjusted my rankings. I've got him much closer to ADP now, so I think he's a totally fine draft pick. But um, obviously, with a wide range of outcomes, I don't really see a world where he finishes around his ADP. He'll either beat it significantly or just be garbage because he's the number two in a bad offense. AJ Dillon's another guy that I just can't find myself getting excited about. Obviously, if something happens there in Jones, he'll be great, but I don't really think he's got a solid role in the offense. He's not going to catch passes. I know he was the touchdown running back for them last season, getting most of the goal line work, but Aaron Jones has shown a tendency to score touchdowns throughout the course of his career as well. I don't want to be banking on a running back that's not going to catch passes and not going to get enough work to need or to really be a viable option unless he falls in the end zone. So it's my turn. Um, We're going to nominate Gabe Davis. Hopefully we can get him for $1, but probably not. We'll do $3 for Gabe Davis here. It's nice to get him on the roster. Like I said, I do want to prioritize getting Gabe Davis on a roster if I have Josh Allen. I really do think I really do think Tua could take a huge step forward this season. He's one of my favorite targets if I do punt on the quarterback position. I think him and Kirk Cousins are really great couples to have. I think Kirk Cousins is going to give you a really nice floor, give you that stability, and then Tua is going to be a guy that's got legitimate top five quarterback upside with just how elite his weapons are, how elite that offensive system is. So I think Tua, especially for $1 like this, he's totally worth taking a stab at. Jacoby Myers is kind of interesting. He's a good enough wide receiver to really justify his current ADP. I mean, for $1, he's a guy that you could play in your flex every now and then. It's just not a pick I make very often because I don't see the upside for him. Um, I'm gonna grab Brian Robinson here for $2. I don't see the upside for Jacoby Myers. I just don't think it really works out for him in terms of there's no path to him being a league winner. When I'm drafting guys this late, I am hoping that I can grab a guy like you saw I grabbed Gabe Davis, a guy that I think could legitimately take a huge step forward and be a guy that's going to be a difference maker for me. And obviously, Jacoby Myers is just not going to be the kind of guy that's going to win in your league at all. So, I mean, if you punted on wide receiver and you're still looking at guys that you might consider starting early on in the season, I think that's okay. But in general, I just don't find myself targeting wide receivers like that at this point. Zay Flowers is a guy that I'm absolutely going to nominate here. Got him. That's awesome. I really think he's going to have a great breakout season this year as a rookie. All reports out of camp are that he looks absolutely fantastic, and he's a guy that's really going to be a guy that they can count on this season. So I really like this team. I think it's a really solid roster. I'd be really happy with it after a draft. If I left my draft with this, I think it'd be certainly a team that I'd be confident I could win the league with. Especially just looking at that starting lineup, that's absolutely awesome. Just to go over the roster here, at starting quarterback, we've got Josh Allen. Our starting 2 running backs are going to be Tony Pollard and David Montgomery. Our starting 3 wide receivers are going to be A.J. Brown, Chris Olave, and Mike Williams. Our starting tight end is Mark Andrews. And on the bench at wide receiver, we have Jordan Addison, Christian Kirk, Gabe Davis, and Zay Flowers. And on the bench at running back, we have Antonio Gibson, Tank Bigsby, and Brian Robinson. So I'd probably give this team like an A-. I think that the only weak side really is going to be David Montgomery there as our running back 2. But you guys know how much I like David Montgomery as well. I think he could be a legitimately high-end asset and a guy that I'd be really excited about. So I really like this team. Again, if you guys have any questions or anything, feel free to let me know in the comments. I'd love to interact with you guys, and hope you guys liked the video. If you want more videos like this, please do subscribe. There'll be more videos coming out every single day. If you liked the video, which I do hope you did because you made it this far, please do give it a thumbs up. It really helps with the algorithm, helps me know that I'm doing a good job. And if you really want to help support the channel even further, there is membership available for like 99 cents a month. Just a couple fun perks. You'll be able to interact with the live streams. You'll have fun emojis next to you guys in the chat and all that. So minor perks, nothing that I'm expecting any of you guys to do. Just sort of thought I'd throw it out there as an option. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.